So again, I'm very happy, feel very fortunate that we have two of our students giving talks. Anna just gave hers, and now we get to hear another student perspective from Danny Faibishenko. He's a junior studying finance and accountancy here at UIUC. On campus, he is a senator in the Illinois Student Council and UC Senate and president of Illinois Students Supporting Israel and an executive board member of the Illini Chabad. He'll be sharing student perspectives on campus anti-Semitism, and let's thank him for his bravery in coming forward and talking to us today.
Hello. We gather here today in response to the drastic rise in anti-Semitism across the nation. Anti-Semitism has been a persistent force in higher education for centuries, taking form in quotas, litmus tests, and other discriminatory acts designed to exclude or persecute Jewish students. However, in recent months, college campuses have served as a frontier in a new fight against anti-Semitism. Developments in the Middle East have redirected the focus of anti-Semitism on college campuses, and Jewish students today are suffering from the consequences. Anti-Semitism, the oldest form of hate, is shrouded in complexity. Its rhetoric is often masked as political advocacy, and the concept of a universally accepted definition of anti-Semitism has been in contest for years. These issues, coupled with an unprecedented rise in anti-Semitism, have shaped the modern American college campus. The events of October 7th have served as a catalyst for hate, sparking a new campaign of anti-Semitism on college campuses across the country. Anti-Semitic incidents have skyrocketed, but more notably, there has been a discernible shift in societal attitudes towards these incidents in comparison to previous years. The systematic anti-Semitism present in the 1900s no longer poses a threat to Jewish students. Instead, its absence ushered a period of subtle anti-Semitism, characterized by swastikas painted across campuses, torn down mezuzahs, peddled stereotypes, and discrete attacks against the Jewish community. These tangible examples of anti-Semitism have been constantly recognized and condemned by faculty and students. Included in this subtle anti-Semitism is anti-Semitic rhetoric related to the Israel conflict, which existed on college campuses long before the attacks on October 7th. Since its inception, the Israel-Palestine conflict has been a war on two fronts. College campuses serve as a strategic battleground when influencing the minds of the next generation of leaders, and Jewish students are frequently caught in the crossfire. However, the influence of this language in prior years never extended past the extremist organizations on campus. October 7th, the bloodiest day in Jewish history since the Holocaust, marked a turning point on American college campuses. Jewish students began to increasingly feel the burden of the events abroad, and the frequency of anti-Semitic events grew exponentially. The focus of anti-Semitic rhetoric and manifestations present on campuses shifted from more religious and cultural forms of hate to discrimination based on Jewish students' connections to the land of Israel. Jewish Greek houses were vandalized following anti-Israel protests across campus. Students wearing yarmulkes and Stars of David were accosted and branded as oppressors. And anti-Israel organizations publicly denounced Jewish centers based on their ties to the land of Israel. Undoubtedly, there's a positive correlation between the rise in anti-Israel rhetoric and the surge in anti-Semitic incidents on college campuses. The recent developments in the Middle East have only amplified this trend. The most concerning trend is the degree to which millennials and Gen Zs approve of the attack committed by Hamas and the anti-Semitic rhetoric that has followed consequently. The level of support amongst this age group is unprecedented compared to previous years. Statements like globalize the intifada and from the river to the sea, which are both rooted in anti-Semitism, have been increasingly normalized, and Zionists have become synonymous with oppressive fascists, serving as a unified target for progressive groups. This has provided anti-Semitic advocates with social cover, allowing them to spread anti-Semitic ideas to unsuspecting students who are unfamiliar with the history of the conflict. The rise in anti-Semitism presents growing challenges for university administrators and students, with a significant factor being the protections of the First Amendment. The First Amendment guarantees the right of expression, which includes hate speech and anti-Semitic language. Statements like globalizing the intifada from the river to the sea, which are inherently anti-Semitic, are considered protected speech, alongside demonstrations against Jewish institutions and calls for the extermination of Zionists. For years, the First Amendment defense has been used to shield protesters from the consequences of their actions. Public institutions, which are bound by their constitutional obligations, have little recourse when it comes to taking disciplinary action against its students. These obligations impose tighter restrictions on administrators compared to contractual obligations found in private institutions. While private schools are now at the forefront in this new era of anti-Semitism, the limitations placed on public schools serve as a ticking time bomb for future escalations in the conflict. Undoubtedly, the First Amendment has a proven track record of protecting anti-Semitic speech, but this defense has its limitations. Most notably, while the First Amendment shields anti-Semites from legal action, it has little impact on the social acceptance and appropriateness of the language. The campus community is dictated not only by its members, but by its collective values, and the effectiveness of anti-Semitic rhetoric is determined based on how it aligns with the belief of its students. Although universities can persecute students for operating within their rights, the rhetoric spewed across campuses can be condemned for violating the values of the university. This action won't deter anti-Semites from spewing hate, but it will help create lasting change by shaping the students' attitude to these statements. The complexities related to the First Amendment leads to the second issue in combating anti-Semitism on college campuses, which is creating a comprehensive definition of anti-Semitism. As members of the Jewish community, we are faced with a disturbing reality. Anti-Semitism is a constant presence that not only endures, but evolves. Like a virus, it mutates to adapt to its environment, and each generation we watch anti-Semitism grow in its complexity and ability to prevail. For this reason, defining anti-Semitism has been a critical point of controversy when it comes to fighting for Jewish students on college campuses. And at the heart of this controversy is the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, or the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. The non-legally binding definition of anti-Semitism states, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. IHRA, like other definitions, highlights stereotypes, rhetoric, and actions that can be viewed as anti-Semitic. The point where it differentiates from other accepted definitions is its stance on when anti-Israel rhetoric crosses into anti-Semitism. The IHRA view aligns with the 3 Ds test of anti-Semitism: demonization, delegitimization, and double standard. The first D, or demonization, is when individuals identifying as Zionists or supporters of Israel are characterized as evil, demonic, or morally corrupt. Tangible examples include when Zionists are described as racist, white settler colonialists, a common trope pushed by anti-Israel advocates. The second D, or double standard, is when Israel is held to a higher moral standard in comparison to the rest of the Middle East and the rest of the world. The last D, delegitimization, occurs when Israel's right to exist and the historical, archaeological, and religious connections of Jews to the state are denied. Including elements of anti-Israel rhetoric in the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism had a dual effect. It offered extra protection for Jews, including Jewish students, but it also prompted other organizations to draft their own definitions of anti-Semitism in response to the IHRA's definition. These other definitions challenge the IHRA's stance on when anti-Israel rhetoric becomes anti-Semitism, and they provide greater leniency when it comes to challenging Zionist beliefs in the State of Israel. Notable definitions include the Nexus definition and the Jerusalem Declaration. The conflicting definitions present challenges in protecting Jewish students on college campuses. Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion offices incorporate several definitions of anti-Semitism to provide coverage in the event that certain definitions are inapplicable. However, this stance creates more issues than it solves. The Nexus Declaration, the Jerusalem Declaration, and the IHRA definition unanimously agree with most anti-Semitic manifestations. However, without a definitive stance on anti-Israel rhetoric, a gray area is created, shielding anti-Semitic advocates from the consequences of their actions. The shift in anti-Semitic rhetoric post-October 7th illustrates the importance of a clear and conclusive stance on anti-Semitism. In the end, this newfound anti-Semitism will not disappear. And as members of the Jewish community, we are left with an important question. How do we respond to this significant surge in anti-Semitism? The clear solution is to collaborate with administrators to establish a thorough understanding of anti-Semitism. Using the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism as the cornerstone, we can reform our diversity, equity, and inclusion education to incorporate more relevant manifestations of anti-Semitism. In addition, increasing the representation of Jewish members in committees that focus on student conduct and disciplinary action will help offer perspectives that reflect the active struggles of members in the Jewish community. While these methods have been effective in the past, it's also time to embrace a new approach. This new era of anti-Semitism demands a proactive response, and central to the strategy is education. It is our job to educate the students on our campuses to not only recognize anti-Semitism, but stand against it. We must educate students on the impact it has on our communities, educate students on the ways it can take form, and educate students on how they can serve as an ally to our community. This fight requires a collective effort, and only through collective action can we prevail. Thank you.